All right, so another Thursday morning. Um, I'm going to be talking about turning overwhelm into fun this morning in this sort of live. A couple of things that have been going on. So I think if you've been following any of my posts or you're inside the Strategic Rebel group, actually that reminds me, let me put that up. Join the group. Please join the group. Great place. What I like about groups, as I think I've mentioned before, is the interaction. So you can leave comments, and obviously the more comments you leave, the more I can help you, because my whole focus there is really to kind of act as a coach and a mentor on a free level. I'm not charging for that. I'm just kind of looking to, because it's a two-way street for me. One, I get to serve, I get to help, hopefully get to inspire. And secondly, I get to gain insights into what's going on for you, which obviously can help me in terms of developing products and services and finding opportunities that are going to be relevant to you as well. So it also helps me with my content. It's like, what do I need to share? What do you want me to share? So join the group basically. So last couple of weeks, obviously I've been moving. If you've been following the post, I've been in the middle of a move. So that's sort of done. As you can see, actually, this is a great reminder. I haven't sorted out the background yet. My office is still a mess. There's stuff piled over in that corner, which I need to go through, and we need to decide where in the house is going, because it should not all be in my office. That's for sure. And there's a couple of other pieces of furniture around the house that need to come to my office. So I need to sort that out as well. So that'd be cool. But yeah, overwhelm. It is a big thing. It's a big thing for me. I posted this phrase. It just like popped out, but I think it's a great way to explain it. It's like I'm always ever one distraction away from wasting a week. So, and that's partly because, as I've recently discovered, I've got certain traits of ADHD. I have found certainly ways to help alleviate those and to give me more focus. One, through supplementation, certain amino acids, tyrosine specifically, has a big impact on my ability to stay focused. But of course, then staying focused doesn't solve the question of what should you be focused on, what should you be doing, and also making sure you get all that done within one person. Actually, it was just before I started the live, I was listening to a very short clip of, I think it was Kevin Hart interviewing Cameron Diaz, and she has stepped away from acting. And so he was asking her, what have you stepped away from acting for? And she was talking about how when she's sort of acting, then being in that industry and being that focused, she was basically, she loves it, but it's a machine. So she has no time for anything else. Like, it takes up all of her focus. So when she's acting, she's in there. She's obviously generating revenues, generating money. Everything else about her life is effectively outsourced to someone else so that she can give her whole attention to the acting side of it. So she got to this kind of point in her life where she wanted to realize that she'd neglected other areas of her life. She didn't have the space or the time to give any thought to spirituality, relationships, and such like. So she wanted to kind of step away from acting. So, and as she described it, take back control of her life so that she can only do in a day what she can only do in a day, which is that idea of, if it requires someone else to be doing it, then she ain't doing it. It's like, what can she comfortably manage in a day? So there's a lot of truth and a lot of overlap to us as online entrepreneurs, in the sense that there is so much you can do in a day. There is only so much you can do in a day. You will get to a point, and the sooner the better, where you do need to outsource things. In the beginning, you might have an awareness that you need to outsource, but have no idea what you should be outsourcing. And I believe as well that in the beginning, you just want, if you haven't been through this path before, then you should just get started. And then as things evolve, then look at what can you outsource. Simple things like, for me, finding a video editor to kind of go through these videos and pull out clips for me based on what I want from it and what I want to do with it. Things like that, things that are simple in the sense of they're easy to define. They're simple for me to outsource because I've got no interest in becoming a world-class video editor, and it doesn't serve me, because that would take my focus away from what's more important in the business. But I wrote down here that clarity is everything. And it is. Like, the move itself disrupted me. Obviously settling to a new home, getting back into a routine, because even though it's a routine I've been following for over a decade, I still forget it. That's the point. That's part of the ADHD traits. It's like, if I'm not on it all the time then I forget things. Like, at a high level, I forget things. So then I need to kind of get back into the groove of something to get me back into it. So therefore, this week I've been feeling like, and obviously it's August, so the children are home. So yesterday, brilliant day. Took the boys. My daughter didn't want to come, so she's working at a local Frankie and Benny's at the moment. earning some money for herself. Fantastic. Very proud of her. So my boys, it's their summer holidays effectively. Of course, we haven't got a summer holiday. What with the pandemic and COVID, there hasn't been a planned, here, we're going away, let's book some tickets, let's find somewhere. We haven't done any of that. So we asked them what they wanted. They wanted to go to a amusement park, like Thorpe Park, like big rides and all that kind of stuff. So we went and spent the day there. I mean, it was great. We bought the tickets, drove down there, went on the X number of rides. I mean, to be fair, you kind of spend more time queuing than you do actually on a ride. The ride lasts 30 seconds. The queue takes an hour each time. But it was great. It was a lot of fun. Everybody enjoyed it. The boys loved it. Fell asleep in the car on the way back. Always a good sign that something's gone well. So that was great. But again, it takes me out of my normal day-to-day business routine. So then getting back into it like this morning still took some time. Took my supplements. Again, that helps. But what I've noticed is whatever I'm focused on when the supplement kicks in is what I'm focused on for most of the day. So I need to be clear that I'm focused on the things that I need to be focused on as I'm taking those things. So I started writing in my journal because that's my other major go-to to get me back on track. That has become a habit which is so ingrained, I don't have to think about it. And it is such a powerful tool, such a useful tool. Now, my go-to questions always, so again, these are my starting points, because if I do them so often, I never have to think about them, so I don't forget them, is how do I feel? How do I want to feel? So I always start there. And then out of that, everything can follow. And so this is the whole thing. Like I was feeling overwhelmed this morning. And if you'd have said to me what you're overwhelmed about, I couldn't have answered the question. I couldn't have said, oh, it's this, 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 and this. It was just a sense of overwhelm because I wasn't clear what I needed to be doing. Even though Tuesday, I knew exactly what I was doing. I had it all written down in my book as well. But before I look at that, before I read it, it's like, oh, there's a sense of, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but I know I should be doing something. So there's an overwhelm element to it. So that's what I'm talking about. So what I've written is, how do I get out of that? It's like, how do I feel? I want to acknowledge how I feel. How do I want to feel? Boom. And then I start writing exactly what I want from this. And then what I find is that out of that flows both new ideas and new strategies, new ways of approaching this, new ways of breaking that overwhelm pattern. And I think that's the important part. Any emotion obviously has a pattern to it. If I look at this through the lens of my NLP training from, decades ago, then every emotion follows a pattern. How we talk to ourselves, how we use our body, how we breathe. So always, the first step is to change my emotional state. And the fastest way to do that is to change my physiology. So emotion follows physiology, emotion follows motion. So if I breathe differently, if I put myself focused on something that makes me feel good, then I immediately feel good. And obviously, if you're feeling good from that place, finding answers to solve a problem is a lot easier. So that's always, I would suggest, your first step of turning overwhelm to fun is actually practice in advance. Like, one of the reasons you might study a martial art, if you're actually studying it for self-protection, is that you want certain things to become so habitual that muscle memory takes over. So you don't have to consciously think about anything. Not that you can. I mean, if you're in an actual genuine situation, you don't have time to think consciously. It is very instinctual. But you want to train those instincts to serve you at a higher level and at a better level, at a more effective level. And that's the whole point of any kind of training. So in the same way, if you want to turn overwhelm into fun, then you want to give your muscle memory a pathway to get out of overwhelm into fun as quickly as possible. So that would mean training your nervous system. So actually taking time to choose an emotional state you want to feel, whether it's certainty, confidence, resolved, excited. Like I like to feel excited about things these days. So I will put myself in that place where I feel excited, and that requires maybe talking a little faster, like focusing on things that excite me in my mind. So I bring up the pictures of things that excite me. Yeah, don't let your mind go there. I'm talking about things in my business that excite me. So I'm focused on those, what I want to accomplish over this last few months of the year, because here we are in August. I mean, that's crazy. We're in August, September, October, November, December, 4 more months, and we're kind of into a new year again. So that's crazy in itself. So there are things I want to accomplish before the end of this year. So I bring those up, and that makes me excited. And then, of course, from that place, I then start writing. So I write, okay, what's going on for me? What do I want to do? I review back through my plan and my notes. I update my plan. So it's a simple way of getting you to that place. Now, what causes the overwhelm? And I think it's important, if all overwhelm is caused by chunking too many things together. In other words, you're trying to hold too many things in your head, or in my case, it's kind of a sense that I know there are things I need to do. I couldn't specifically tell you in the moment exactly what they are. So they all end up jumbling together into this kind of black mess in my head, which brings with it a massive sense of uncertainty. So then it's like, well, I'm not like, where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? And then that then leads to overwhelm. So I can see the trigger. I can see the pattern. The trigger is very much that I know there are things I need to do. More often than not, when I reflect on this is like a self-modeling thing. And I would suggest you do a similar thing. It's like if you think about what triggers this, then I know for myself what tends to trigger it is like having yesterday out where I'm with the family, great day, but it's a day out. So when I come back to today, there's a sense of, oh, I didn't spend yesterday doing some of the things I need to do in my business, so I've got to get on with it today. So all of a sudden, there's a sense of urgency. And I'm happy with that sense of urgency. But then, of course, there's still other life things to do, simple things, whether it's just making coffee or emptying a dishwasher, whatever it might be. There's little things that need to be done. There's things that you like suddenly, like this morning, they come and collect all the waste bins and things. It's like, well, did I put the bins out? Get the bins out. So little things like that get in the way, which then turn my urgency into kind of, oh no, I want to get sat down. I want to get focused. Does that make sense? And then that then leads to what am I supposed to be focused on? And then we're back to the black hole and then the uncertainty and so on. So that's all it is. It's then that triggers my overwhelm. So recognizing that, it's like, okay, recognize this is just going to trigger the overwhelm. Recognize that actually these little mundane things, do them, they're done. Don't think about them. Because if you don't think about them, there is no feeling with them. And then just get sat down. And then it's like, right, okay, what's going to make this fun for me? What's going to ensure that I stay out of overwhelm? Clarity. Always. Everything comes back to clarity. So then we're back to, you really do need to capture and track what you're going to be doing. And the more I work in 90-day chunks, because as a chunk, I think chunking is a very powerful and necessary skill. The ability to chunk down, the ability to chunk up. Because if I can chunk down from black mess into specifics, the overwhelm disappears. If I can recognize that I'm trying to hold either too big a chunk in my head, so that I can, because that's what overwhelm is, it's holding too big a chunk in your head. If I can narrow that down and say, okay, these are the specifics I need to be focused on, then great. The other way of overwhelm is you kind of chunk down so far that you end up with a to-do list, which is a mile long. And so you're focused on it one item at a time and you go, oh my God, there's a million of these things. That can lead to overwhelm. So that's another way of achieving overwhelm. Like if you want a recipe for overwhelm, I've just given you 2 already. It's like, how many do you need? So then it's like, okay, so how do we get out of that? So it's like chunk appropriately. So if you got too much detail, you need to organize those things into categories so there's less chunks to focus on. Remember as well, this came out of science back in the 40s, I think. The magic number 7, I forget the guy's name now, who did the original research. But he talked about this idea that, as humans, we can typically comfortably focus on 7 chunks of information, plus or minus 2. Now, obviously, the more stressed you are, the quicker that chunk drops. And I've said this before, but if you ever watched Dora the Explorer, they're very clear that they chunk the program into 3 chunks. It's only 3 chunks, which obviously is easier for a child to manage. Manage 3 chunks. It's easy. You can follow that. You can understand it. You can go, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then we're done. So I still like that. Like the rule of 3 for me is, can I chunk things? Can I take everything I've got and chunk it into 3 areas? If I can, and it still serves me, great, because that's easy to focus on. It's easy to hold in my head. It easily keeps me out of overwhelm, and it makes things, therefore, more fun. So for me, it's like, I want to capture everything. I want to map out the 3 months. So one of the things that I do, I'll show you this here, is like I'll map my goals. So you'll see October, September, August. And so on there, that's like a capture sheet. So this morning, for example, I was thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? That, like, there's a coaching program I want to launch this year. I want to run it. It's an 8-week program and I want to run it. So it's like, okay, I've thought about this a couple of times this year, but I've still never got around to actually running it. So I kind of capture it for October. It's like, October, I'm going to launch this thing. Then it's like, okay, what am I focused on now? Now, this brings us to the commonality between us. as online entrepreneurs, whether you're a coach, a speaker, an affiliate marketer, we're all online entrepreneurs. So within that, there are things that are common to all of our businesses. The first being, of course, lead acquisition. We need to be consistently generating leads. We need to be consistently nurturing those leads. We need to be consistently able to put offers in front of those leads. Now, I'm very aware that I drop the ball a lot when it comes to making as many offers as I could do, because I tend to work in sprints. So it's like I think 3 months, okay, do something, and then I kind of take a little bit of a rest. And sometimes my rest can take, another 3-4 months. So I'm aware of that. But they're common things to all of us. We all need to be acquiring more customers consistently. We all need to be making consistent offers. We all need to be nurturing our leads, so our audience, as I call it. So we need to be doing all of those things. So therefore, within that, and let me help, because I think sometimes people get overwhelmed. This might be either a third recipe or a time with the other two. One of the ways to get overwhelmed, and I see this regularly, is people focusing on their ideal client and getting overwhelmed because they don't feel they've found their ideal client, or getting overwhelmed because they don't know how to define their ideal client. So let me break this down for you and make it real simple. We are in the middle of an entrepreneurial revolution, which means there are more people taking control or wanting to take control of their financial destiny independently of a job. In other words, they don't want to be reliant on a government, because you can't anyway. The government can't afford to feed us all. They don't want to be reliant on an employer, because having an employer brings with it the politics of the organization, the fact that someone else is in charge of your future to a certain extent. Yes, you can obviously change organizations, change jobs, but things like that get in the way. So that's a lack of freedom. That's a lack of autonomy. A lot of organizations, corporate and public sector, tend to bring out what I think is the worst in people, in the sense of it brings out people wanting to tell people off all the time. So they treat anyone below them in this, and how they think they're below them, I don't know, but they just think there's a hierarchy in the business. I'm at this level, you're at this level, therefore you're below me. They tend to treat people as children. So they tell them off. Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's like, that's not a way to run a business, in my opinion, but I've never run a company the size of IBM. So what do I know? But from a human point of view, I don't think it's a way to run a business, which is why I didn't stay there and I left as quickly as I could. So more people want to take control of their financial future. They want to take control of their destiny. We're in the middle, therefore, that creates the entrepreneurial revolution. This started over 20 years ago, and all I see is it accelerated more and more. The pandemic has accelerated it more. More people coming online, more people going online. This is something I can do from home. Is there a way to make money from it? Can I take control of my future? Boom. So on a big chunk level, your ideal client isn't defined by, oh, they're this person, this age, who wears this colored t-shirt. They're defined by their desires. They're defined by the goals they want to achieve. They're defined by their interests. So your ideal clients are entrepreneurial. I guarantee that. If you're online, your ideal clients are entrepreneurial. It's a huge and growing market. Now, within that, you can chunk it down and say, actually, these people, what connects them is they all have a desire to make X amount of income or a full-time income online in some way. You might then chunk that down and say, okay, some of these people are coaches. So for me, I appeal to, like, you could, broadly speaking, break down online entrepreneurism into two categories. So this is just two chunks. This is one way of doing it, but it's also, if I take from entrepreneurial revolution, chunk down into two chunks, immediately I'm out of overwhelm, because now I've got two chunks. That's easy to focus on. Chunk one, people who provide a service in some way. And chunk two, people who sell a product in some, like a tangible product. So therefore, I could label those e-commerce people, service people. Am I focused on the e-commerce people as the people I want to help? No. Are you? Maybe. Depends what you offer. Service people. I could chunk that down even further. Coaches, speakers, affiliate marketeers, course creators. Now, I could say that's 4 chunks, or I could just say they're all people that sell information online. That's one chunk. But then within that, of course, what separates them might be their motivation. Like a lot of affiliate marketers, you might think, are purely driven by the money. That may be true. A lot of coaches may be more driven by the desire to make a difference. That might be true. A lot of speakers tend to be driven by both. They tend to, like coaches who become speakers, tend to become speakers because they recognize that they want to make a difference, but in order to do so, they got to reach more people, they got to make more money. So therefore, speaking tends to bridge the gap between the two. So you could argue it that way. Course creators could be coaches, could be speakers who want to package their knowledge in a way that gives them more leverage. So then all I'm looking at it as is they're selling information. That's really what they're doing. Coaching is a way of helping people solve problems. Typically, it then involves giving people information which educates them, because not all coaching solves all problems just by asking people questions and drawing things out of them. If somebody doesn't know how to fly a plane, asking them questions to draw it out of them isn't going to work. It's still a skill they need to learn. So look at it in those terms. Entrepreneur revolution, big chunk. Break it down. E-commerce providers, they sell a tangible product. Service providers, they sell information, coaching. Break that down further. So do the people you want to serve fit into one of those categories? If they don't, they're probably not your ideal client. Because within that, then you're looking at people who are ambitious. You're looking at people who want to achieve a certain goal, a full-time income, a better than full-time income, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month, whatever it might be. So look at it in those terms. So that breaks that down. So now you've got your ideal client or some idea of who they are. Doesn't have to be perfect ever. What is overwhelming is when people attach a belief to this that they need to absolutely pinpoint exactly who their ideal client is before they do anything. No, you don't. All you need to know is that your ideal client wants to achieve a certain financial goal. They want to have a better quality of life. They'd ideally like to have more leverage, therefore more freedom. Those are constants across everybody coming online. If a coach comes online to get clients, I guarantee they would prefer more freedom, more impact. Given, absolute given. So those are the drivers, the motives. That's why I'm such a fan of understanding the psychology of things, because it's what drives people to do the things they do that's important, because that will shape your ideal client and shape all of your marketing and sales. So first step then, ideal client, entrepreneur revolution, they are entrepreneurial in some way. So let's break that down. Let's get you out of overwhelm in that respect. Stay focused on that. Secondly, we now need to acquire clients. And ideally, we want to acquire clients at a profit. Now, there's easily got to be 1,001 ways to build a business, which then comes back to what kind of business model do you want to create, which I've talked about in previous live streams. Go check one of those out. Now, within that business model, you may be the kind of person that says, what suits me is to be driving clients every single day. So then break that down. You can do it through paid traffic. You're going to do it through organic traffic. You're going to do it through a combination of the two. If you're going to do it paid, then you might say, well, I want to run ads that run every day of the week ongoingly. That's fine. Or you might say, actually, I'm better suited. What suits me personally and gets me out of overwhelm is to go, actually, I'm going to make this tangible. So in other words, I'm going to run ads for 7 days, 5 days, 10 days, whatever it is. Like this morning, as I was writing, one thing that's come out, because I was going back through some of the more successful promotions I've done for myself and also with clients. And it tends to be where, and this came out of wanting to get my clients out of overwhelm, was saying to me, instead of thinking that you've got to run ads all the time, let's think of it in terms of promotions. So let's say you're going to run one promotion a month. And let's say that promotion is going to be delivered through a webinar, because that tends to be my area of speciality. So it's like, okay, so one webinar a month with one promotion. So then there's the pre-webinar. That's where we fill it. And then there's the post-webinar where we do follow-up, which is typically email or phone calls if you've got a team, to maximize the number of sales. So now instead of, oh my God, we've got to keep running ads all the time, which can be overwhelming because there's no end date to it. So in your head, how do you hold that in your head? If there's no end date to it, you can't. That's another recipe for overwhelm. Then break it into a smaller chunk, which is, okay, we're going to run ads for 10 days prior to the webinar. That's it. And in that 10 days, then obviously you can have all your KPIs. You want to get leads for under £10 a lead or whatever it might be. So then you run it and you say, okay, we want to achieve 100 or 150 new leads for this webinar. Will they all show up? No, but that's the focus of the ads. We want 10 days, 150 new leads. And that's well doable. I've got a client doing that right now. And then it's like, okay, then the webinar itself, run the webinar, do your promotion, make sales. And let's say you do that once a month. Now it's tangible. you now know you can break that into 3 chunks: the webinar itself, the follow-up, so email. So those can be written once, tested, and you can just refine them each month until you got a set of emails that really maximizes the follow-up and the sales. And you've got the pre-webinar, which is basically running ads, filling the webinar. Or pre-webinar, not running ads, in which case you're doing things organically, and you might be doing that through putting out lots of content. You might be doing that through going into other people's Facebook group, answering people's posts, talking inside those groups, and moving them into your own group so that you're building up an audience that you can then put on your webinar. Either of those will work. Obviously, the organic method is more manual. It is slower in the beginning to build momentum. So I'm more of a fan of combining, of really using ads to put organic on steroids. Again, we'll talk about that in another video, and I've probably touched on it many times over the last few lives. So again, we're out of overwhelm. So it's like the key to this is chunking, is to make everything tangible. It's not, I'm going to run ads. Generalization could go on forever. It's, I'm going to run ads for 10 days each month. That's tangible. That gets you out of overwhelm. I'm going to run one promotion each month. That's tangible. It gets you out of overwhelm. I'm going to run one set of emails, 7-day sequence of emails after the webinar once a month. That's tangible. It gets you out of overwhelm. And it also allows you to make progress. So you're growing your business in that way. Does that make sense? So I'm going to keep this short because I don't want to waffle on. I do believe, and I'm just going to reiterate and I'm going to wrap up. Getting out of overwhelm and turn it into fun means learn how to chunk appropriately, chunk at the right level. The key to this, to focus on the areas that matter to you, is obviously lead acquisition, making offers, nurturing your audience. So within that, my suggestion is make everything tangible. So to begin with, one offer a month is very doable, it's very tangible, and it's very easy to focus on one. So now you know I'm going to do one offer a month. An offer will have a means of making the offer, ideally a webinar. So that's my suggestion. Do a webinar once a month. Do a follow-up to the webinar. So now it's your second chunk is the follow-up to maximize the sales from the webinar. That is typically done via email because people have registered. You got their email. You can see whether they attended, didn't attend. You can write a simple series of emails that typically deal with objections to enable you to maximize sales. Then there's all the pre-webinar, which is putting people on the webinar. So I could suggest that that could be you're going to run ads for 10 days to fill that webinar. Or if you're not going to run ads, then you are going to either put together a Facebook group because you need another way of collecting people together. So you put together a Facebook group, you then spend 30 minutes to an hour each day. Again, that's a daily task, but it's tangible, it's chunkable, where you are finding other groups on Facebook where your people hang out, people like your ideal client who are entrepreneurial, and you are commenting on their posts, and you are giving them, if you like, breadcrumbs, a bit like Hansel and Gretel, leaving a trail to bring them into your own group where you can then make announcements saying, I'm running a webinar on this date. This is the topic. Register here. They then move on to your email list. So that's a way of doing it. In the beginning, that'll be slow. But again, if you're concerned, if this gets in the way, because these things can get in the way, where you go, oh, well, that's going to be very slow. I'm not going to have anybody on my webinar. I don't care. Because it's more important to develop that habit of going one promotion a month, one webinar a month, one follow-up a month, one fill the webinar a month. And if you're doing it organically, then it's like, okay, organically, I need to do 30 minutes a day of prospecting, because that's really what it is. You've got to be prospecting. So going into Facebook groups that are your similar audience, people you want to reach, and commenting on posts in there, becoming known in there, moving people into your own group, sending direct messages to these people, saying, do you fancy a chat? Oh, by the way, I'm doing a webinar. Do you want to come on it? This is the topic. Find details in my group, for example. You could do that. It's very manual, but again, it will work. And maybe you have 3 people on your first webinar. Cool. Maybe one of them buys. Brilliant. But it's a starting point. And the point of this is if you can keep it tangible, then you have clarity. If you keep it tangible, chunkable, and you have clarity, you are always out of overwhelm. If you continue to do that, you will grow, you will progress. Every time you finish a webinar each month, do a review. What did you learn from it? What could you do next to grow it, to double it, to increase the impact of it, to make twice as many sales from it? Then you come up with answers. Then you get back to work repeating the same things, but doing it maybe at a bigger scale, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. Does that make sense? So chunk. Focus on doing at least one promotion a month. Pre-promotion, promotion, post-promotion. Those are your 3 chunks. That gets you out of overwhelm. That keeps you focused. Your ideal client is entrepreneurial in some way, because that's the biggest revolution we're experiencing. So even if you offer yoga service to entrepreneurial people to help them be more productive and less stressed, massively beneficial. So again, all of it can be connected to helping them achieve their goals. Always. That's a given. So chunking, primary skill. Keep things ideally into chunks of no more than 3. So 1 promotion a month. There's the promotion, there's the pre-promotion, the post-promotion. That's 3. Get started, get going. If any questions on this, because I know this has been like a rapid kind of overwhelming to fun think through. I mean, I literally came unprepared and just wanted to think this through. Think about the triggers that cause you to feel overwhelmed. Think about how you can interrupt those triggers, how you can change those triggers. Use a journal, always the most powerful tool to get you out of overwhelm. What do I feel? How do I want to? How do I feel? How do I want to feel? Is my 2 go-to questions. But anyway, I've thrown a lot at you in this last few minutes. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed this. Any questions, always leave them in the comments below. I will answer them. I'm here to coach you, support you, guide you, kick your butt if necessary, and inspire you to achieve the goals you want to achieve, live the life you want to live, so that you get to support yourself, your family, your community, and the world becomes a better place. All right, I will talk to you again. Much love.